Hi, my name's Keith Cooper of Northlight Images. I'm a professional working photographer, commercial photographer, architectural, industrial, do all sorts of stuff. And I often get asked, is it worth becoming a professional photographer these days? Well, I was looking back through some of the stuff I've done in the past, and indeed I've covered this a few times in videos, but some of these were bits I covered perhaps when I first started on YouTube, when there were just, a few dozen people might likely see them. So I've been going back through some bits and pieces and seeing what's changed. This is in sort of 4 or 5 years. I still get asked very similar questions. Now, things I'm going to look at here include cameras, technology, the business, and how much to charge. And also, and I addressed this in a recent video, about actually becoming a professional landscape photographer, for example. Now, as I said, I do certain things, but what's really changed? What's the same? Most things are the same. I'm an amateur. What do I need to learn to become a professional? Well, in terms of photography skills, which most people, when they ask me this question, they're almost always thinking in terms of photography skills. Probably, if you're a halfway competent photographer, then nowhere near the amount that you think you might need to learn. It's probably you have many of the photography skills, and you may well have the kit that's needed for it. To be a professional photographer, all you really need to know is, what do clients need? What do they want? How can your skills, your products, and you do have to think of your photos as products, what can they bring to clients? Clients have needs, you address those needs with your product. It's as simple as that. It's a business skill, and that's probably, if you're an amateur photographer, so what you need to learn to become a professional photographer, you need an appreciation of the business side of photography. Now, I've done quite a lot of things about different aspects of photography business, about whether it's worth joining professional organisations or not. For some people, maybe. For an awful lot of others, no. They're a relic. They have no relevance to many professional photographers. But that's not always true. You need to do your research and find out what they genuinely offer and whether it matters to you. Now, an example about knowing your potential market, and this is key for anyone setting up a small business. Now, I've tested a lot of printers of late, and I get a lot of questions saying to people, I want to print greetings cards. That's great. And I want to sell greetings cards. That's also great. Do you have the slightest idea whether anyone wants to buy your greetings cards? Because this is, some of your photography, for example, or your artwork. Similar problem for photography. If you can't produce something that somebody wants, then it's a hobby. If you can produce something that somebody wants, they will pay for, but they won't pay much for, you've got a not very profitable business. And the business skill is to realize that you need to make a profit. There's lots more to it than that, but when it comes down to it, if your business doesn't make money and make a profit, that's not turnover, that's profit, then what are you doing it for? It's a paid hobby. Okay, that was in 2021, so 4 years ago, nearly over 4 years ago from this one. And the question I'd still ask, and obviously times have changed a little bit since then because we're in the midst of the pandemic, is your business sustainable? So great, yeah, you sell some photos, you do some work. Does that last? Has that changed? Things do change, but anyway, is it sustainable? Because just because somebody has come up to you and says, whoa, your photos are great, my reaction to that is always, well, that's nice, thank you. My second reaction is, what does this person know about photos? Do they buy photos? Do they have anything connected with this? If not, then accept the compliment for what it is. If, however, they work for a company that regularly uses photography in its products, its marketing, then take a bit more notice of what they say. It may well be relevant. Just because that happens once doesn't mean it's going to happen again. And here comes the problem, and this is a true story from years ago, and I mentioned this before, about some ne'er-do-well friends of mine lived in a house together, most of them unemployed, claiming benefits, etc., etc. One of them, with a little bit more spark, said, we live near a wealthy neighbourhood, we should make some bread, freshly baked, homemade bread, go out and sell it door to door. So they made some loaves, they went out, they nicked another friend of mine's bike temporarily that had a big sort of rack on the front of it so they could put it on and wheel the stuff about, and I believe they sold 5 or 6 loaves of bread, which is all they'd made. So they thought, great, this is superb. Off they went, pulled the various benefit checks, bought loads and loads of ready mixed baking sets for bread mixers, not the individual ingredients because they'd be cheaper, but no, we'll buy packs of ready mixed bread mix. And they spent all night making loads and loads of bread, and an absolute mess. And I know this because I know some other people who had the misfortune to live in the house at the time. An absolute mess they made out, and they produced masses of bread. And they went out the next morning. They went out with all this bread, and they sold 5 loaves again. So before you jump into this, make sure there's actually a market for the photography you want to do. Yes, a successful business moves along and adapts. But the other question that I get asked an awful lot is a pretty simple one: how much to charge? Now, my general attitude is you look at the market, you find things. We put prices on our website, always have done. They are sufficiently detailed to give people some information, but not overly detailed so that they don't dismiss us on price, because price does matter still, but it shouldn't be the be all and end all. So how much to charge? Well, the blunt answer is as much as you can get away with. Business is there to make a profit. Now, I hear people going, but people will come in cheaper. Yeah, people will always come in cheaper. It depends whether you want to work for free or not. Something I've covered in another video looking at that, whether that's ever worthwhile. But bear this in mind. If I've got 100 clients, and I wish after the year we've had, if I've got 100 clients, and I decide to up my prices arbitrarily by, 50%. Now, some of those clients are going to go, no, and they're going to leave. Other ones of the clients are going to think, Keith does a really good job for us, does all the photos we need, whatever, they'll pay. I've lost some business, but the remaining business is now far more profitable. And it's quite possible that by putting your prices up, you lose a few people, but the additional profitability you get more than makes up for the ones you've lost. And the other thing to remember is the people you lose through putting your prices up are rarely ever the ideal clients. They are rarely clients that have much sort of connection with you. They may well have hired you on price. If somebody hires you on price, they will drop you on price. Now, all our best clients are people I've known for a period of time. I know what they want. They know what they'll get. And that's a key of making a sustainable business. So the pricing may seem important at the start. As I've looked at this in other areas, aspects of pricing and working out things like this. But don't be afraid, if you are producing products that clients want, of perhaps putting your prices up. As I said, probably, as much as you can get away with. Although that's perhaps not the phrase you'd use when talking to people who are actually going to be paying you. Okay, you think, well, all right, that's about charging, that's reasonable enough, but are my skills good enough? Now, this is a question that is very easily an issue for many people. You feel that a lack of competence. How about some courses? Lots of people advertising courses, especially here on YouTube and things. Something I personally don't like YouTube for stuff like this, but as I said a few years ago, someone from Canon twisted my arm into making the videos. They said they'd be popular. They were right, I was wrong. But are there things you should do? Are there online courses? Find out what works for you, but what to do about training? What courses should I do? Now, I'm happy to admit I've got loads of qualifications in previous careers, a couple of degrees, but I have not the slightest qualification in photography. It doesn't matter. I have business experience, business knowledge, and I have technical photography knowledge. I can take decent photos. Well, at least enough people that matters have told me that, and I'm beginning to believe them. That's one other thing. Always be wary of that bit about thinking your picture's not good enough. Find people you trust, ask them, get them to give you feedback. It does help, because there's always a sort of feeling that, well, anyone could do this. Well, if you're any good, no, that's not true. That's what you're selling. You're selling your services to produce photos that are useful for people that they can't go out and do themselves. Some people will always look at a picture and go, yeah, I could do that. I could do that on my phone. Now, I'm going to suggest quite often they couldn't, and they'll quickly find out if they try it that they couldn't actually do it. But what about courses for doing it? Find stuff that is relevant to what you want to do in terms of a business. There are lots of these. I'm always very wary of ones that goes, our 27-step course will see you setting up a successful photography business. Photography business in a box. This is how to do it. Well, I'm sure it may well have worked. Certainly working for the people who are selling the courses. Well, one would hope so. But are they any good? All of these courses, whether they're on YouTube, whether they're personal ones, whether they're lectures, whether they're all kinds of stuff, find out how many people have done them, find out how many people have set up businesses, and the real thing, and I suspect many of these people running these photography school courses won't tell you, how many of those people who set up businesses are still running the business after a year, 2 years, something like that. You want to see whether this stuff is useful to you. Of course, you can do all the training you like, and I would suggest, find what works for you. But really, one of the important things I would say that has kept me in the business for over 20 years is knowing what you want to do, what matters to you, having some interest in it. If the photography is no more than a job you just go out and do, well, if it pays, then good, but is it really giving you the fulfillment that you're perhaps after? Should you perhaps stick to the day job? Well, that's always one of the problems. But it's important to take care, to look at what bits you like doing and what bits you don't like doing. Since then, I've just passed 65 and I'm looking at how I'm planning a nominal retirement. Now, nominal retirement means doing much more of the work that I like doing, but less of the work I don't like doing, and other things as well. But, have a think about that aspect of it. So knowing what you want to do helps. What about personal projects? Now, I might joke about this, that it's what you do when you've not got paying work, but it is. But I always maintained that when I set up business, I wanted to do stuff I enjoyed as well. It didn't necessarily have to be profitable. What could that entail? How are my personal projects? Personal projects, you mean lack of work? Now, that's a somewhat cynical way of looking at it, and yes, it is. Often people do stuff, their own photography, when they haven't got much work. Nothing wrong with that. It's an important thing to do your own photography, both to keep your interest in photography going and also to refine, learn new skills. That's a key part of it. How you want to dress this up is entirely up to you, but I would say don't do so much work that you've got no time to actually stop and take photos of things you like. I do architectural photography, and this picture at steps at Wells Cathedral is one I did on a personal visit there. Nobody was paying me for this. I was actually testing out a lens. I wanted it, and I particularly wanted to take a photograph of this particular view of the steps leading up in Wells Cathedral, and it's a personal project. Now, it happens that I've used the picture all over the place, and I have actually sold copies of prints of it. Well, yeah, so that's a bit of a bonus. But when it comes down to it, it was a personal project. So don't beat yourself up about it thinking, oh, well, I've got to be working, I've got to be earning money. Take a longer view. If I hadn't taken that longer view of things, I'd have never got round to writing a book about how to use tilt-shift lenses. So that, in a way, is a personal project. I have been paid for the book. It's not. It has actually earned me money, and is earning money. Hence, please buy my book. But it's there. It was a personal project. Writing a book like this is a lot of work. If nothing else, there are hundreds and hundreds of photos in it. That's a personal project. Find your own, find something you enjoy doing. It doesn't always have to make some money. And also, as I say, doing stuff you enjoy gives that little bit of spark for when you're doing work which, as a professional photographer, you will have to do that you're not that interested in. Just gives that extra bit of thing. So you're doing stuff like that, and something else I still get asked about a lot is what camera to choose. Now, these things have changed. Back when I did this earlier bit, I was still using my Canon 5DS. Now, I happen to have a Canon R5 as well, which in some way replaces that and is a backup camera now. But my main camera shifted to a Fuji GFX 100S because I was getting more work where the kind of images I get from the GFX 100S were worthwhile. So yes, camera kit does matter, but not as much often to the people who initially asked me the question. You need to use stuff a bit more to understand why you want it, what you need to use, then you will know what you need to get. Just rushing out and buying stuff straight off is really a good idea. Well, it depends how much spare money you've got, but really find out what it is that you need. Don't just go out with a shopping list, because you may well have what you need. Well, one that takes decent photos. It's a bit of a nonsense that I hear sometimes. Oh, a good photographer could produce good photos on any equipment. Yeah, that never quite sounds right to me. Yes, I can produce good photos on any equipment. Whether those photos will meet my requirements as a professional photographer is another matter altogether. This particular picture was taken for a client, is using shifted and stitched images, using tilt shift lens. Yes, I could do this in Photoshop with wide angle and various other things like that. Yes, I could do that, but really this is one of those photos where the equipment makes a real difference. But such equipment may not be relevant for the sort of business you want. So the likes of the 17mm tilt shift lens that I used, I believe, to take this one here, I would think is unlikely to be a great deal of use, given how expensive it is, for a wedding photographer or a portrait photographer. It's about needing what you need to produce the pictures you need. Similarly with lighting equipment, studio equipment and things like that. Now, studio equipment, basic studio, is a lot cheaper these days. eBay can be your friend. But at a certain point, if your business takes off, well, buy some better quality kit. But don't rush out and buy the high quality kit right to start with. It may be of no use to you. Make sure that you buy new kit when you need it and for use. And for the technology side of it, I always make a point of trying to understand the technology because that gives me an edge, because most of the time I can forget about it, but every so often truly understanding the technology I'm using just gives me that edge in getting a better picture. And that better picture is a better product, and that better product works for the business. Despite all of this, the question, apart from pricing perhaps, the question I don't get asked nearly as often as I feel I should get asked is about the financial side of running a business. How do you handle your finances? Are you actually going to be earning enough to live off? Is it a job you can do? Now, this depends what age you are, what your family situation and various other things are. But this is an area where, an old joke about pizzas still is relevant. What's the difference between a professional photographer, and a 15-inch pizza? A 15-inch pizza will feed a family of 4. Now, I was lucky when I took up photography professionally. My previous career had bought me a house, and I didn't have any kids and nobody to support. That meant it was my risk. If you've got a family to look after, to contribute to, then be a bit more careful into looking at the business side of things and being sure that it's really worthwhile for yourself. I'm very lucky. I had the opportunity to become a professional photographer, and I took it. I was prepared for it to fail after a couple of years. It didn't. I'm still doing it, and that was in 2003. We're now in 2021, and work has been very thin over the last year, but I'm still glad I made the choice. That's good and well. You're thinking about what you want to do, what's going to make business, you've had good feedback and things, but I want to be a landscape photographer. Well, and I get variations on that as well. Can it be done? Yes, it can be done. I mentioned in a recent video an very specific aspect of landscape photography that I do and get paid to do. But what about that? Is it enough? So I get people ask, for example, I want to be an architectural photographer. Well, I say, well, you probably also, until you've established a reputation and clients and people want you to take photographs of their buildings, I would say you probably need to do related things as well. So construction photography, all sorts of stuff. You might look at whether, and this is something we do get asked for these days and I don't support, whether you want to get into drone photography, for example. Now, entirely different area, something I've not got into for a whole host of reasons, expense, for example, and just because if you're going to do it, you need to do it seriously. You not just dabble in it. It needs to be part of what you do. But that in a way comes back under the equipment side of things. But really, what are you going to do? I want to be a landscape photographer. What can I do? Well, I would like to go around, spend more time taking photos of landscapes. But where's the money? And somebody I spoke to before I actually took up photography, I was talking to them about this, and they said, yeah, great, take your landscape photography, take your photographs, do your black and white stuff, because getting paid for it is not easy. I won't say they put me off it, but they pointed out that I actually really needed other areas of specialism, hence architecture and the likes. So I'm unlikely to get many people to ask me to go around and photograph the great English cathedrals. That's my hobby. I love this. In black and white, I like such stuff. Yes, it contributes to showing some of my technical skills. People like the pictures. I've sold a few prints, but it's really not a significant part of the business. This is stuff connected with the printing and things as well that actually I enjoy and helps me advance the business as a general business. It's not what we would call a profit centre for the business. And yeah, I hate that term, but it's a realistic one. You have to look at your business as a business. So look at what you can do. If you want to interested in landscape photography, look at well-known landscape photographers. What do they do? What else do they do as well as go and take pictures, sell pictures of landscapes? You'll probably find they do an awful lot more. Amongst the things that I do as part of Northlight is I teach commercial photography. to companies, usually small businesses, but there has been some quite large businesses as well who want to set up their own product photography studios for doing stuff for themselves. Now, there's all kinds of reasons why they would want to do that rather than farming the work out. And I happily go around and teach businesses to do their own product photography, to get them started, to give them advice on how to do it. As part of our diversification, I've much expanded the kinds of bespoke training work we do. It's also why I wrote the book on tilt shift lenses. Oh, it's, yes, still here on the shelves. By the way, in case you were wondering why this place looks in a bit of a state of disarray, we're in the process of moving houses, and I've had to pack away an awful lot of stuff to make the room a lot emptier. Apparently my jam-packed solid office that just had room for me was not conducive to showing around people who wanted to, perhaps buy the house. But yeah, that's another matter. But the books, I should just mention that I'm seriously thinking, because I've been asked about doing it, of doing another book. And this would be, a personal project in some ways, a book about printing, about fine art printing, about what it means, why you print. Not a cookbook, not a step-by-step recipe book of follow these steps and you will get great pictures. Don't believe in such stuff. People will produce it, I certainly won't. But, that falls into a whole load. It's part of the business, but it's also that bit that just keeps things ticking over, keeps me interested, keeps me challenged. Doing the same sort of work over and over again, you lose that edge. I mentioned in a video recently, it's almost like you need to perfect your ability to take photographs of dull subjects, because any fool could take a reasonable picture of a great award-winning building. You just wait until the lighting's right time of day, stand in a good view, take the picture, there you go, you've got a good picture almost. You can do that. But taking pictures of dull things, that makes a difference. Ties in with I mentioned about landscape and stuff as well. But what should you actually do? What other sorts of stuff? Are any of these things even relevant to you? Now, this is personal stuff, so I don't know. But I get asked about stuff like this quite a bit. So I've got, for example, I do very bespoke teaching on using tilt and shift lenses. Now, I've written a book on tilt shift lenses. That's partly because I'm interested in it, but it's partly the business, because tilt shift lenses are a significant part of my photography business. In fact, this particular one here was taken, it's based on a photograph from 1905 by F.H. Evans, very famous architectural picture at Wells Cathedral, and it's some steps, and that is my version of it taken with a 17mm tilt shift lens. That I did because I enjoyed it, but also because I was learning how to use the lens. That is part of the business as well. So all of this stuff here, the YouTube stuff, I do not expect people who watch my YouTube videos, the business side, to rush out and go, we need to hire Keith to do some photography. It's not that. It's a general building your credibility as a business, and it comes down to that. Should you go pro? Do you have to go fully pro? Can you dabble in it? Can you dip your toe in the water? Can various ways of looking at it? I don't know. It depends entirely on where you are, your age, your family circumstances, your background, what you like doing, all sorts of stuff. But the key questions come back to areas I've covered in this so far. Somebody just says, oh, should I become a pro photographer? Well, I don't know. How am I going to know? Only you can find that out. Now, I would say that if you are going to do it, think through the financial implications very carefully, plan it, have a business plan, even if it's a relatively simple one, have a business plan. But do have some escape points. Because when I took up photography, it was such a change of career that if I did it for too long and then stopped doing it, I would have had too long a break from the previous type of work, and it would have made it difficult for me to return to doing that sort of work. Now, given that sort of work is what paid for the house and other things, you can see I didn't want to burn all my bridges for it. So have a point of when you can seriously look at the business and go, is this for me? Maybe a couple of years, maybe a year, I would say it needs to be at least a couple of years to see seriously whether you're adapting, whether you can actually make it as this. But be prepared. Take other people's help if need be. Be prepared to say, well, that was fun, that was interesting, but it's not going to make me my fortune. Well, actually, photography is probably not going to make you fortune anyway, but it's not for me. Have your CV live. Work out ways of using your time spent as a photographer as a positive when you go for job interviews. Emphasize the skills you've developed and things, the business skills, etc., etc., etc. if you need to go back to getting a real job, because it might happen. You don't know, but hopefully it won't. Well, so maybe, yes, if you feel like doing it, go for it. I can't tell you, but I can tell you that if you don't understand business side of things, you will likely not have a business that will last a long time, and you likely will not end up making much of a success of it. There are undoubtedly a few photographers who have made it by not knowing one bit about much of the technical stuff and the business stuff, but I'm going to say they are very few. And even those that perhaps give like to present an image of just sort of, oh yes, I just go out and take the photos and do things like that. There's an awful lot underneath it. There's a lot of support. There's the business analysis and stuff like that. So if you've got any questions, let me know. I've got lots of other videos in this entire sort of section connected to videos connected to the business of photography. Yeah, we've got a few changes going on here. This, by the way, is still the Canon Pro 300 because Canon have delayed sending me a Pro 310, unfortunately, to do a review of. There will be two printers here at some point. Well, hopefully it's sorted out before we actually sort of move house or anything like that, but you just don't know these things. Anyway, thanks for watching and bye.